Good day everyone, we are from Group 4 and today we will be presenting about hydrogen fuel cell vehicle technology. This presentation consists of three main parts. The first part we will be explaining about basic mechanism of hydrogen fuel cell car. The second part of this presentation will be the reactions involved in the technology. And the third part of this presentation will be the 5 alternative green energy. Good day everyone, my name is EALVINA and today I'll be presenting hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. So what is a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle? You might be wondering. The abbreviation given for hydrogen fuel cell vehicle is FCEV, which stands for Fuel Cell Electric Vehicle. Now, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, they produce electricity by themselves. Unlike any other electric car, they need other power source to generate electricity. This technology is still being developed because even though there are many forms of hydrogen fuel cell present at the moment, but all of them have the same motive, which is to combine hydrogen and oxygen to generate water and electricity. Now, this technology also serves as a new solution to more environmental friendly transport in the future, as the only waste product which is emitted from the vehicle is water. This vehicle has also built-in complex air filters, which is to draw in and clean dirty air as they drive along. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles are also quite costly since expensive rare metals are used in the chemical catalyst and also it is still being developed. But however, the costs are expected to go down over time as engineers are still finding ways and also found many other ways to make the vehicle more durable and cheaper. Fuel cells can also be refilled in less than 5 minutes with sufficient hydrogen and oxygen to travel about 300 to 500 miles, which is up to 800 km. Now you might be wondering, how does this technology actually works? So here is an example, as a figure of a car of this technology. As you can see here, it has a battery, a fuel cell, a hydrogen tank, and electric engine. So now the green arrow represents the hydrogen. So the hydrogen will enter the vehicle through the fuel tank neck, and then it can be stored in the hydrogen tank. And then when it is needed, it will travel to the fuel cell where the reaction will take place with the oxygen. After a series of chemical reaction which has been taken place in the fuel cell, electricity will then be generated. Now electricity here represents the blue line, blue arrow, and then it can be stored in the battery. It will then travel to the electric engine where the electric engine motor starts. And when the vehicle starts, propulsion of the vehicle. That is the basic mechanism of how this technology actually works. On the right side, we can see there's a figure here which shows how hydrogen fuel cell works. So we are talking about the fuel cell itself. What does it actually happen in the fuel cell? Each fuel cell has 2 electrodes. One is positively charged cathode and the other is negatively charged anode. In order to generate electricity, a series of chemical reactions will take place at these electrodes. Now, as you can see here, there's an electrolyte separating the anode and the cathode. This fuel cell is actually coated with a layer of catalyst, where you can see it is represented by a thin layer of the white line. This catalyst is actually a hydrogen carrier but an electron barrier. I will explain about this later. The electrolyte carries charged particles between them and there is a catalyst present in order to speed up the reactions, because we don't want to wait for hours just for the reaction to complete and the electricity will then be generated. Hydrogen will serve as the basic fuel in the hydrogen fuel cell, and then oxygen is actually required so that the fuel cell can actually work. Hydrogen then reacts with the oxygen in order to produce water as a byproduct, which is why it is a pollutant-free technology. Pure hydrogen is used in this technology, then we can conclude that this technology or the vehicle is completely carbon-free. Reverse electrolysis can also take place in the fuel cell, where the hydrogen will react with the oxygen in the fuel cell in order to produce electrical energy, heat, and water. And we can see here the only byproduct that is being emitted is actually water. So it is actually environmental friendly. Hydrogen comes from one or more tanks which is built into the FCEV. Oxygen comes from the ambient air. As we all know, air contains 21% of oxygen and 79% of nitrogen. Water will be emitted through the exhaust as water vapor. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles are locally emission-free. The process by which a fuel cell works can be summarized as below. The fuel cell has a membrane coated with a catalyst. When hydrogen molecule hits the catalyst, they will split into hydrogen ions and electrons. The fuel cell contains a membrane coated with a catalyst. When the hydrogen molecule hits the catalyst, it will split into hydrogen ions, which is also known as protons, and electrons. The membrane lets the hydrogen ion pass through, but not the electron. As I said just now, the catalyst membrane is actually hydrogen ion carrier but electron barrier. So it does not allow electrons to pass through the catalyst. So where will these electrons will go? Electrons will flow through an electric circuit where the electric current is generated. At the cathode side, the hydrogen ions and electrons and the oxygen in the air combine to produce water. In order to produce enough electricity to be able to propel a vehicle, a complete fuel cell system consists of several hundred of membranes are stacked together. Since single fuel cells do not produce much electricity, therefore they are arranged into stacks to create more power. As I said just now, fuel cell does not provide enough electricity for a car to move. So that is why it is arranged in hundreds of stacks. Fuel cells work like batteries, but unlike them, they do not need to be recharged. So they can generate electricity when the fuel source is applied. It also operates silently as there are no moving parts involved in any of the anode, cathode, or electrolyte, unlike the conventional cars. The fuel cell range is independent of the outside temperature. Electricity generated in the fuel cell of hydrogen engine can take two routes, depending on the demands of the particular driving situation. The fuel cell system is dimensioned for normal use, but whenever extra power is needed, it is provided by a battery on the vehicle. So when the fuel cell produces more power than the truck currently needs, the excess energy is used to charge the battery. The battery will also be charged by the brake energy from the vehicle. Now this battery is known as the peak power battery, and it is significantly smaller and lighter than a fully electric car. For example, Tesla. It can also recover the brake energy where the electric motor converts the kinetic energy of the vehicle back into the electric energy, as I said just now. As you can see here, now we can compare the three types of vehicles. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles are the most expensive ones because it is still being developed and expensive rare metals are still being used in the catalysts. It can travel from about 320 to 405 km per charge, and it takes 3 to 4 minutes to refuel, unlike other electric vehicles where it takes about 30 minutes to 12 hours to refuel. Electric cars does not have emission. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles only emits steam to the environment, while conventional vehicles emit carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide to the environment, which is not environmental friendly. Electric vehicles actually runs on batteries charged electrically, while hydrogen fuel cell vehicles produce their own electricity. Tesla is one of the examples of electric vehicles. Hydrogen refueler stations, which actually looks like the conventional petrol station, it can fill a typical hydrogen car in 5 minutes. In countries like Germany and US, hydrogen refueling pumps are present at conventional petrol stations. The concept of refueling is actually same as the conventional type of diesel or petrol car, where we will just fill it up like diesel or petrol. And a hydrogen bowser has a pump with nozzle that clamps onto the car. Once the seal has been made, the hydrogen gas starts filling in the tank in the car. Otherwise, if the seal has not been made, it will not start pumping to ensure there is no leakage. On the right side of the figure, the guy holding the tube is actually called the hydrogen bowser, and at the bottom there is actually the hydrogen refueler station.
The next question given was discuss the reaction involved in detail and name the product formed. The reaction involved in this hydrogen fuel cell is fuel cell vehicles uses hydrogen gas to power an electric motor. This combines hydrogen and oxygen to produce electricity. Hydrogen gas is supplied to the anode fuel cell. The anode is coated with platinum, which acts as a catalyst which decreases the time to react and to break down the hydrogen into protons and electrons. If a circuit is connected between anode and cathode, then the electrons can travel through the circuit and provide power to any load that is connected as part of the circuit. This here is the reaction that occurs at anode, which releases hydrogen protons and electrons. This is an example of oxidation reaction. The flow of electrons through the load is the electric current that is generated by the fuel cell. Hydrogen ions that are produced from the hydrogen at the anode can travel through the electrolyte in the fuel cell to the cathode. Oxygen supplied to the cathode reacts with the ions electron that are produced from the anode and electrons via the external circuit to produce water and heat, both of which are removed from the fuel cell. The reaction that occurs at cathode is this, written as here, which releases water. This is an example of reduction reaction. Next, the product formed. Converting hydrogen gas into electricity produces only water and heat as a byproduct, meaning fuel cells don't create tailpipe pollution when they are used. Here it is known as that it only produces water, which can be seen in the reaction equation that has shown before, where the oxidation reaction in cathode which only produces water, and this type of fuel cell is environmentally safe and it doesn't create any pollution. These are few types of fuel cell that can be seen used in hydrogen fuel cells. First is the PEM fuel cell. This fuel cell is currently favored by engineers for powering vehicles, but this not as the only one that is designed possible. There are many more, but these are favored by the engineers. Next is the spacecraft use more primitive design called an alkaline fuel cell. Third is much greater amounts of power could be generated by an alternative design known as solid oxide fuel cell. Fourth, microbial fuel cells have an extra feature which they use tank of bacteria to digest sugar, organic matter or some other fuel and produce an electric current. And fifth is another possibility is to have a vehicle with a solar panel on the roof that uses the sun's electricity to split the water into hydrogen and oxygen gases with an electrolyzer.
Good day everyone, I'm Veronica BASKAR RASA and my matrix number is 206485. Today, I'm going to present about 5 alternative green energy and I'm going to discuss about the reactions involved and the products formed. Now let's look into the first energy, which is biofuel. Biofuel can be derived from biomass, and biomass basically means that the waste of plant or animals that are processed to create a fuel. This is a renewable source of energy as it can be produced continuously. Now let's look into the types of biofuels. The first one is alcohol. Examples of alcohol are ethanol and methanol, which are obtained from fermentation of sugar or starch crops. The next one is biodiesel. Biodiesel can be made from the hydrogenation of vegetable oils and animal plants. Biofuel can be produced from biomass material being converted to energy through the thermochemical and biological process. An example of this is biodiesel reaction, where oil reacts with alcohol to produce biodiesel and glycerin. To understand better, let's look at this schematic diagram. It shows the biodiesel production. Firstly, vegetable oil or animal fats undergoes transesterification process where it produces crude biodiesel and crude glycerin. The products are refined to get pure biodiesel and glycerin, and this process also involved a methanol recovery process. Next is when biofuel are combusted in the engine of the vehicle, it produces smoke particles which are carbonaceous nature, and it also consists of organic carbon OC and elemental carbon EC fraction. Moving on to the second one, which is air energy. Compressed air powered vehicles or CAV are powered by the air energy. It uses the compressed air as its fuel. Now let's look at how this vehicle works. Air is firstly compressed to higher pressure at a compressor station. It is then transferred to the storage tanks. Then the compressed air is slowly released to the power pneumatic motor. Then the motor converts the air power to mechanical power, which is transferred to the wheels, and it's used to operate the vehicles. Since the vehicle is using air energy, thus the emission is free at the exhaust. And according to reports, Tata Motors, or the Indian Automotive Manufacturing Company, will be launching a car in 3 years' time using the compressed air technology in India. And the air-powered cars will weigh below 907 kgs, which will make it more fuel efficient. This is the example of the air-powered cars. The next one is natural gas. Compressed natural gas vehicles operates with a spark-ignited internal combustion engine. Now let's look at how this natural gas vehicle operates. Firstly, natural gas is stored in the fuel tank or a cylinder at the back of the vehicle. Fuel system transfers high pressure gas from the fuel tank through the fuel lines, where a pressure regulator reduces the pressure to a level compatible with the engine fuel injection system. Then fuel is introduced into the combustion chamber, where it mixes with air, then compressed and ignited by a spark plug. When it's combusted, it produces energy that drives the vehicle. This vehicle has emissions, but lesser emissions because it's a cleaner fuel, and the emissions are regulated amount of hydrocarbons, oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. The next one is solar energy. Solar vehicles are powered by solar energy, and it's obtained from solar panels that's on the surface of the vehicle. Now let's look at how solar energy is used to operate a vehicle. Photovoltaic cell captures the energy from the sun, and it converts to electricity to fuel a battery that runs the motor. This vehicle produces no emission. This picture shows a solar bus where in Tindo, Australia, this is the world's first public transport that uses the solar energy. The last energy is electrical energy. All electric vehicles are known as battery electric vehicles, and the types of batteries used is lithium-ion, nickel metal hydride and lead acid. Now let's look at how battery electric vehicles operate. It uses the electricity stored in the battery pack to power an electric motor and turn the wheels. When it's depleted, the batteries are recharged using grid electricity, either from wall socket or dedicated charging unit. And this vehicle does emit carbon dioxide gas, which due to manufacturing of the battery and from the electricity generation.
And that is it for my presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.